to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who has built her mortgage career around developing people, creating structure, and bringing the human element back to an increasingly automated industry with a background that started outside of lending and evolved into building teams and growing a branch and helping other loan officers elevate their production. She brings a thoughtful, builder minded perspective to what sustainable growth really looks like today. So, Krystal Stearns, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have this conversation today. I've enjoyed getting to know you and learning about just, your business and the things that you're really good at and what you're interested in. So I'm really excited to have you kind of share your story with the audience. And I just like to sort of jump right in and kick things off with a quick question. So in sort of our conversations leading up to this, you mentioned that your path into this business was influenced by relationships and people who invested in you early on. What were those early moments that shaped how you show up today as a loan officer?
So I would say the biggest thing is just when I got into the industry, I had applied to be like an office manager. I didn't really know a lot about the lending side, and they felt that I had a gift and they took a chance on me. I think that has encouraged me to take chances on people to where it's like maybe they don't have the exact experience, but they have the right attitude, they have the commitment, they have other gifts, talents, factors. And so I think when I've hired, which I've definitely have had my fair share of bad hires too, like we all do, but it's more so my interview style is very different. It's more so on the type of person they are versus their work experience. And I think that does stem from my first company that I came to work for, taking that chance on me of having no lending background, really not even knowing what a mortgage was. I was pretty young, and I took that chance, and then here I am now. So
Yeah. So what are some of the attributes of a person that you look for? Like what are the qualities of a good loan officer in your opinion?
oh, that's a good one. I think number one is, honestly, this is going to sound corny, but it's just being a good human being, being a kind person. I've seen a lot of stuff in this industry of loan officers that just treat operations people like, they're beneath them. I've heard of loan officers just really talking down to underwriters or yelling at them, or just things that I can't fathom personally. I've definitely have gotten frustrated to where I'm like, bite my tongue a little bit, but there needs to be a level of profession. But I think being kind to people is super important, and having the right just personality for like how to handle things, how to handle stress. And I think the big factor with our industry is having the discipline, because you're not going to wake up motivated. You're not going to want to do a lot of things. And if you don't have the discipline, I mean, we're commission only. And if you don't have the discipline to structure your day, structure your business, go out and get the deals, then you're not going to be successful. In addition to having the discipline of the organization and wanting to learn and wanting to grow. But it really comes down to attitude. Experience is important too. Like, obviously you can't hire someone who has zero experience, but even if they're fresh out of college and things like that, they've got enough of the background to where they have enough attributes to where, sorry, I have a puppy.
It's all right.
The attributes that, because I can't teach somebody to be a good person, right? So that's something that just has to come. The other thing I think with this industry is a lot of just the greed that happens in this industry. So I think it's finding people that really care about people, not just a transaction. They're not just here to make a quick paycheck. They're actually looking at the client and seeing what's their story, what is their background, what does their future look like, what loan makes sense for them versus, let me just get a loan to get a paycheck. So those are some of that's a very obviously broad scale, but those are some of the things that I just look for in people. Is just being a good human being is the first thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start for sure. I mean, we're dealing with people's money. Clients have to get sort of financially exposed in front of the loan officer to, go through this process. And if you don't have a bit of decorum or, if you don't treat that in the right ways, it can come off the wrong way and really derail the experience for that person who's going through a really important time, right? Buying a home's a big deal. So, anyway, when you think about your career and the journey that you've had, what were the experience that have influenced your belief in, let's say, collaboration and community as a foundation of growth?
That's good. I think I notice a lot in the loan officer side of things, there's not a lot of collaboration. It seems to be a lot more competition versus collaboration. And I feel like on the real estate side, you do see a little bit more of the collaboration. So I've always tried to do that because I feel like we can help each other grow. We can learn from each other. You know, maybe you structured a loan one way that I didn't think of, and vice versa. And I've had a lot of loan officers that would come to me with deals that are falling apart, and they're like, I don't know where else to go with this. I don't know who else to call. And they know that I'm going to be that help for them versus saying like, yeah, figure it out. Or, you know, a lot of loan officers will just snake the deal. I've had that too, where I'll have a deal come to me that's almost done, but there's one little thing the loan officer missed and they're having a hiccup. And it's like, all they have to do is this and it's good to go. Where, you know, if I wanted to, I could come and be like, yeah, sorry, that loan officer is not good at what they do. I'll get it done for you. So I've just never felt that that's a way to do business. And I definitely could have gained a lot more loans if I did it that way, because I've definitely helped in a lot of loans in those circumstances. But at the end of the day, it comes back to just being a good person. And that's not how I would ever want to treat someone or run business. I mean, deals are hard to come by and we all depend on them to survive. So I think helping a loan officer and building them up versus trying to kind of go behind their back is always a better way. So when it comes to that collab, I feel like in my community, in my network, a lot of loan officers know that they can reach out to me for that. And then vice versa, if my name's on a pre-approval and you know maybe they're shopping or something, loan officers will be like, oh yeah, I know Krystal really well. She's great. And they're not as quick to try to take the deal from me either. So it kind of goes both ways. But I think just community in general is really important. And this business can be very lonely. Any kind of like entrepreneur type of business can be very lonely. And so I think it's important to have like-minded people and also people that understand, because somebody outside of our industry just really does not understand what loan officers go through, the day-to-day stress. Like, you know, I think you're just taking a loan application. What's the big deal? They don't know all the things that go into it all the time and all the just the details and the day to day and just how much responsibility we have. It's not as simple as just like, oh, here's a mortgage, you know? So I think it's important to have that community, and it's unfortunate that there's not more of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. That's part of why the lowdown even exists, is that, there's not a lot of collaboration that goes on out there across company lines. And, in some cases, people are having to get into coaching programs just to find that. And while the coaching programs are great, I'm not discrediting them.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there could be more community within the community. I'd love to see more of that. So I think it's a great call out. And I love that you have this like sort of abundance mentality where, you're willing to kind of help that originator say, hey, this is just do this small tweak and everything will be fine, as opposed to saying, mine. I find that is very
Mm-hmm.
common among originators that produce at a high level. Like they sort of understand you'll get back what you give, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen that sort of work for you over your career, or has that been kind of a constant theme? And then I guess my other question is, have you always been that way, or is that something that evolved over time?
I feel like I've always been that way. When I started getting loans that were more difficult, is really where my business took off, was because I would get loans that, this is going to come across the wrong way, but a lot of loan officers are lazy and a lot of people are lazy, not just loan officers, just people. So I would get deals where the loan officers, usually bigger companies, they would just be like, yeah, no, we can't do it, and just go on your way. And it's unfortunate because how many of those people didn't try again somewhere else? Like there's some big box lenders that even on VA loans require a pretty high credit score, considering what the VA doesn't have a credit score requirement. So things like that, where they've been told no, and then they would come to me and I would figure out a way to get it done. And I would get some really difficult stuff where I'm like, oh man, I don't know, let me figure this out. And so I'm reading guidelines and researching and talking among my peers and things to figure it out. So then I would solve that problem. And then I kind of became known as like the lender that could get the harder stuff done, which isn't always a good thing. Like that can definitely wear you out, but I love to figure things out. And I don't know, I guess it probably boosted my ego to be the hero. I don't know. But no, I just love like when somebody deserves to have a home and it makes sense, but it doesn't fit in this perfect little box. Like, how can we think outside of the box to make it happen? So that's how I feel like my career took off, which is really like honing in on understanding the guidelines and figuring out creative ways to structure things that made sense. So then when I would get a loan officer who maybe just hadn't had that same opportunity to learn in that way or didn't have mentorship to learn in that way, then I kind of felt like it was my obligation to give back to that. Because that's the other thing is, in this industry, there's not really training. You get trained on how to use the system, but you don't get trained on like, here's to go for guidelines, here's how to structure loans, here's a quick guide on this. Like it's definitely a learn as you go. And so since I feel like I was blessed with opportunities to have a lot of loans to learn as I went quickly, then why not give back and help the next person and then teach them how to grow? Because at the end of the day, it's about the client. And at the end of the day, it's about the home buying experience for the client. How can we make that better for them? Like that really is a bummer for them if they're coming to a loan officer and being told no, and they're getting pushed to this loan officer, no, this loan officer, no, and then they give up when really it's like, well, if they would have just known this, it would have been a yes. And so it's like, how can we avoid that? It's already such a stressful process for clients. So how can we make that a smoother process, I guess, and not have to put them through all of that to hopefully get a house. And I think I look back during like COVID times when rates were so low, and I have so many people who are like, oh, I thought the VA required a 640. And I'm like, no, well, now rates are much higher. And it's like, man, if they would have just been told correctly or found the right person, they could have a house now for a lot less with a way lower rate. So it's like, how do we get in front of more people and educate more people, whether it's me doing it or another loan officer doing it? But at the end of the day, our whole job is to get people into a home, right? So
Right.
I think that's a really long answer, but
Yeah, well, so you brought up a really great point in that you kind of felt like a turning point for your career was when you were starting to take on some of these more difficult, more challenging loans and, became sort of known as the lender that could get it done. And there's a double-edged sword to that, right? It's great because you get those loans because people trust that you can do the hard stuff, but then the hard stuff requires a lot of extra work and time and working with the client to get this document or that document and tell me the story here and there and working with the underwriter. So how do you, like, as your business grows, you don't want to say no to everything, but like how do you strike a balance with that? Because when you become known as the go-to on everything, it can be difficult to keep up with that as your business grows. So like how have you managed that?
having the right support. And so to touch on the harder loan thing too, just to add to that, I got into the industry during the subprime market. Anyone could get a loan. I mean, I remember a woman that had a 540 credit score, a year out of bankruptcy, just started a candle making company, and she was able to get like a stated income loan. And I actually did turn that loan away. Because I was pretty young and I didn't know a lot about money, but I was like, something doesn't feel right about this situation. And I was like, sat down with her and I was like, let's do a budget. How much have you been paying in rent? What does this look like? I love that you have this candle business, but what does the future of this candle business actually look like? Like, are you going to sell enough candles to pay this mortgage? And so we sat down together and we decided together that it wasn't a good idea. And, technically I couldn't turn her loan down, right? But I was just like, this is just not like, and I think this lady's setting herself up for failure. And maybe she went to another loan officer and got it done, but I won't turn a loan down. So if a loan seems way too hard and it's not, worth my time, I don't see things that way. Now, if I get a client who is just very rude and very difficult, that does happen, then I'll say, you know what, I really don't think we're a good fit for each other. Maybe you can reach out to your agent and ask for another lender. I've had that happen a few times. And I've had the people who just constantly, are tire kickers and will waste time. And when I recognize that, I actually had one not too long ago and I just had to tell her like, hey, I don't think we're a good fit for each other. She didn't know what state she wanted to live in. She had talked to so many different real estate agents. And I said, just please keep in mind, these real estate agents are commission only and you're having them measure garages in different states and you don't even know where you want to live yet. You have a house that you haven't put up for sale yet. Like, let's talk about this. And that didn't go very well with her, but I knew that it was a waste of my time in that sense. Now, if I get a loan that's very difficult because they have low credit and they have all these other challenges, I'm not going to turn it down. I'm going to put them up on a plan and say, listen, here's what's on your credit. Here's what you need to do. I have a credit guide already built out that I'll send to them. So I'm not spending a lot of time on that piece. And then, or if it's like an income thing, hey, you've been on this job for 12 months, it's part-time, you've got to have 2 years. So if it's something that can be done right now, I like to set them up on a game plan, but I would never turn a loan down because it's too hard. I think that's unethical. But to support that, again, during COVID, when rates got really low, or actually even before COVID, my business skyrocketed. So I just had to hire the right people around me. And believe it or not, I hired brand new people with no mortgage experience. And we killed it. And a couple of them have gone on to be very successful loan officers even still. So hiring the right people around it, and then having that same conversation with them. Because I had one loan officer, he tried to be a loan officer that didn't want to deal with this loan. He's like, oh, it's a condo and it's only this much of a loan amount. And I was like, I don't care what it is. Like, that's not how we treat people. And we decided he wasn't a fit. So that's an expectation I set up in the beginning. Have your boundaries. Like, don't let somebody disrespect you or walk all over you, but you don't turn a loan down because it's not a big enough paycheck and it's a lot of work. I get it, because yes, I've done those loans where I'm like, now that I'm done, I pretty much just lost $1,000 of my time. But how many loans do you get that are easy as well, right? So it's like they're going to balance each other out.
Right. So you just mentioned that you've got a really unique skill in that you're able to help newer loan officers kind of figure out this business and grow
And
professionally.
I'm so sorry, I can't hear your question.
Okay, am I back? Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you. There you
Uh-oh.
are.
Here we are. Okay,
Sorry.
cool.
There
No,
you
it's all
are.
right. So you mentioned that you have a very unique skill in that you've been able to successfully bring newer people into the industry and help them become successful in this business. How? I think everybody would want to know, like, what are some of the things that you really like? Are there specific steps that you follow, or what are some of the things that you make sure that you are pouring into someone new to the business to ensure that they, have the foundation and can be successful on their own in the future?
I think feeling like they had the right mindset in the beginning to feel like they would be a good fit for the industry, and then just giving them as many skills as I possibly can that I wish that I would have had. Like I mentioned before, in this industry, we're thrown to the wolves. We're not taught a lot of things. So it's like, what are the things that I wish that I was taught? And when I got into the industry, I didn't even know coaching was a thing for a long, long time. I went to a coaching event in California several years into my career, and I was like, oh, this is a thing. So I think for me, it was finding ways to just set them up for success in ways that I wish that I had had. And again, also just hiring really good people around me too, like really good operations people that are detail oriented, that can walk them through, where I can say, hey, this person's new, this is the type of loan that we're going to work on. Let's walk them through it together. I'm not a detailed person. I'm a very direct to the point type person. I'm not the best teacher, but I'm really good at getting you the end result, I feel. But I'm not really good at telling you steps 1 through 10. I'm going to tell you steps 1, 3, and 7. You know what I mean? So I think having like the right people, like for example, when I brought on a couple of new guys, I had a really, really good processor, and she was very detailed and she loved to educate and talk through all those things, bringing on new people and walking them through that. But I knew the people that I brought on had the attitude, the mindset, the kindness, the respect, and they cared about people enough to work their tail off to do it. And there were nights that we would be at the office till 10 o'clock at night, and they were there working, So I knew that they had what it took, and then they went on their own, which that's what anyone should do. I never expect anyone to stay with me. Like maybe we team up together in a different way, but at the end of the day, the goal is to build you up to be your own loan officer. And so they've gone on to be very successful, and I'm very proud to see them. But it's not anything that I necessarily did. I think it was more so me being a support to them, and then seeing that unique skill set that they had, I guess, and then taking that chance on them too, right? Because again, they were brand new trying to come into the industry, and a lot of people won't take chances on people like that. And again, I have had a lot of people that have wasted time and that didn't turn out well, but the ones that did have gone on to be very successful. And sometimes they, give me credit for that. Sometimes they don't. This depends on the person.
Well, hey, that's amazing either way. Now you mentioned sort of being exposed to coaching, on a trip to California. Are you still in coaching communities? And was that sort of like a turning point for you professionally where you saw, hey, this is available, I'm going to invest in that? And what has the impact of coaching been like on you?
So the coaching thing that I went to was Todd Duncan, and it was,
Okay,
gosh, it's
sales
been probably a
mastery.
decade ago. Yeah, it's been a long time ago, and we went as a group. I worked with Fairway at the time with Matt Wood's group, so we went together, and I was like, oh yeah, this is cool, and you get so much stuff that you take away from it, and you hope you implement it. At the end of the day, coaching only works if you implement it. Coaching only goes as far as you're willing to take it. And then I coached with Kai McBride, and then I coached with Go Coaching with Amir. So I think that where coaching has been really helpful is again having that collaboration that we don't have otherwise. It makes it difficult to have outside of coaching. And I think coaching is very good for accountability. But if you're not implementing the things that are in there, then it's not going to work for you, right? And so I think coaching works for the right person. I personally am not coaching right now just because I'm kind of in burnout still, and I didn't want to add something else to my plate. I used it to kind of get my back after being drained after COVID and going through a lot of personal things. And so then it was like, okay, let me have that as my little reset. And now I'm kind of back at it. But I do think coaching could be really, really beneficial for either newer people or maybe people that have been doing it for a long time and they're like, but they've kind of taken a back seat to it because the industry changes so much. And so it's nice to have people that are in it that can say, oh, this is what I've been doing that's really working for me. Or, hey, have you guys heard about this program? Or, it's like with how fast technology changes, our industries, I feel like is changing the same. So it's finding creative ways to get clients, keep clients, find fun marketing things to do. So I think coaching can be, like I said, very, very good for the right person.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. Client behavior, consumer behavior is changing all the time in the world, regardless of industry. To your point, technology is advancing. There's new ways to communicate. There's so many different influences that can come across your eyeballs all day long. Finding, getting those insights or into what the latest trend is or what's working or how to, get attention really is can be helpful because yeah, some of the old tried and true ways, some still work. And I think picking up the phone will always work, but some, maybe aren't as effective as they used to be. And so it's always good to kind of have a finger on the pulse. Now I know in this business, there's times where business fluctuates, it goes up and down. Sometimes it's market driven, sometimes it's burnout, sometimes it's a lack of support and not having the ability to, stay consistent with one activity because you're getting pulled into 10 others. How do you manage those moments in a career? Like what have you done to stay grounded through?
I don't. I'm just joking. Oh, that's a good one. I think yeah, anxiety medicine's helpful. I think for me, so whenever it got really busy, I was comfortable doing about 10 loans a month. And this is kind of back in the day where that was really good. Like loan officers were doing like 1 to 5 deals. You didn't really hear like these big producing loan officers. And I don't know if it's because it wasn't really a thing or if it's because we didn't have social media and Scotsman's Guide and things like that to tell you about these big producers. So I think, I was very comfortable where I was. I added a loan officer assistant once I was consistent at 10. And then that got me to 15 and then that got me to 20. And then I saw where I, continue to have growth. And thankfully I added junior loan officers to my team before COVID because when rates went so low, we were doing, 50 loans a month. 1 month I did 91 loans for like 32 million or something in 1 month. And that was crazy and that was fun. And thank God I had the team and the setup I had because otherwise I don't know what I would have done. And then with COVID, we were literally working 6 days a week from sun up to like bedtime, not sun up to sundown. I mean, I was falling asleep with my laptop. So then to go from all of that, it was tiring, but it was fun and the hustle and the bustle. And then to have the market just completely, I don't want to say tank. I don't know if that's the right word, but I feel like it did. Now at the same time, I was going through some big personal life changes and I also had bought a house I was remodeling and there was just so much happening at once. And then that market shifted. I feel like it shifted overnight. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. And talk about the perfect storm. I had changed companies. I've been with the same group of people for 11 years now. And other than the 6-month stint that I had kind of a bad partnership. And so brought my whole team over, partnered up with somebody else, and it ended up just not working out. And so I had that happen while the market's shifting. There's just so much going on. So I was like, okay, what am I doing with my life? And what do I need to change here? But after the market shifted, it was like, okay, dust yourself off and get back at it and doing the things that you know to do, but also trying to implement new things. But then also having the burnout of having worked so many hours. And I have 4 children as well. At the time, I also had my stepson on e-learning and it was just so much. So coming out of that burnout, I was just like, I just needed a minute to breathe and kind of get back at it. But it to me was a big blow to my self-esteem to go from doing consistently 35, 50 loans a month to doing, 5 to 10 loans a month. And so I always feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not working hard enough. Like I'm very, very hard on myself. And I would say that's probably the worst way to handle things. I think it's all, everything's about mindset. And you mentioned like the abundance mindset, that is so important. And normally I'm really good at that, but there's those times where I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning panicking. But then and I don't like to compare myself to anyone, but I'm number two in my company, so obviously I'm doing okay. But then I look at my bank account and I'm like, oh, this is depressing. So I have a lot of bills. So my income, I bought a lot of investment properties and stuff during COVID. So I think that really it's mindset and really taking care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit, as silly and corny as that may sound. I think it's really important, because if you don't take care of your health, if you don't take care of your mental health, your physical health, what do you have? Because money can't buy those things. And so I think that the best thing is just having that discipline. It has to be number one, where you have a routine where you get up every morning and whatever your routine is, like working out. I plan to, and I think it's really important. But working out, having a proper breakfast, like really taking care of yourself physically and mentally, then dive into the work. And what does the work look like? Because you can sit here and pout and say the market's dead and rates are up and life sucks and not get anything done, or you can do the things that work. But having the discipline, it's really hard to get out of your head sometimes. Yeah. When you're in like that shutdown, burnout, high anxiety, depressive mode, and then everything around you is negative, just in our world and politics and the mortgage industry is just so much. So I think you really have to find a way to protect your mental health and your mindset, because I drown and then I have to get back up, and I'll drown and I'll get back up. So that's very vulnerable, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well,
that's the honest truth.
Yeah, well, I thank you for sharing. And, really what I'm hearing is like your identity can't be what you do. Like you can't have your whole identity attached to your job, especially one that's so market reliant. Now, granted, there's a lot you can do to, you know, work with the market and try to, avoid, big changes when the market changes, but there's an element of being a loan officer that relies on the market. And if the market changes and business slows down and your only identity is in your success as a professional loan officer, it's going to be a really rough road ahead. So to your point, finding those other things and investing time into those other areas where, now you're a much more complex person and you've got other things that are in your identity and you can rely on those to really kind of pull you out of tough times.
Mm-hmm.
So Krystal, kind of as we get to the end here, we've had a great conversation and I've asked a lot of questions, but I just want to give you an opportunity to say whatever you want to say. Like, is there a question I haven't asked? Is there advice you want to give? I want to give you sort of the floor and just, whatever is important to you and you want to have this audience here, go for it.
I don't really know. One thing that you and I had talked about that I think is probably good to touch on is remember that we're dealing with human beings. And I understand that it's like sometimes you don't want to get on the phone because you just talked to a client for an hour about why they were late on their credit card and you're like, yeah, I've heard it all. But we are dealing with human beings and we are kind of like a therapist to them in a way. We're like a financial therapist to them. And yes, we have the bigger companies that are call center and it's a slam bam, thank you, ma'am. They get the loan, they go, whatever. They sell these crazy closing costs and do all the things. But I think it's important that we remember we're dealing with people and relating yourself to those people. Like I just talked to a lady today and I typed in her birthday and it was the same year as my mom. And I'm like, this is my mom. This is somebody's mom that I'm talking to. And she just needs a little HELOC. And, it's going to be like, she's not sure how to send paperwork, but this is a person. And it's like, don't forget that we're dealing with people. Everything's not just a transaction. Everything's not just a paycheck. And again, looking at the whole picture, making sure you're doing right by people and protecting their financial future. We've got refi season coming and I've seen people that'll pay $15,000 in closing costs to save $100. Like, please don't be that loan officer. Please educate that client why that doesn't make sense and just do right by people. And I think you'll go a lot further than just trying to cram as many loans as you possibly can under your belt. Like, have a long-term plan and treat this as a business, but also I think it's kind of our duty to also protect their financial future and to help people with generational wealth and build up these things. Like, we have such a beautiful, unique opportunity to help people set themselves up financially for the future. I mean, there's so much that goes into that homeownership can truly do. So I think that would be my biggest, thing to just end with is just remember we're dealing with people and take care of people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's been kind of the theme of the whole episode. So I think it's great that we end on that. And Krystal, I just want to thank you for being a part of the lowdown and coming on the show and sharing your story. And I just wish you the best for the future.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the conversation. I've enjoyed getting to know you as well. And thank you for taking time to chat with me today.
You bet. All right.